Imagine paying $3 million for a condo and watching it go sideways for 5 years. That's what many investors fear when it comes to CCR properties. We know that it's not easy to enter into the CCR because of its high entry prices, and it is also not easy to exit either because typically you want to sell it higher than the price you entered at. So for the past few years, CCR properties have earned quite a bit of a reputation. You hear things like CCR doesn't grow in price, only foreigners buy CCR properties, young families and HDB upgraders don't buy in CCR. Yes, they are true to a certain extent, so that leads us to this question. Why do developers still want to buy properties in the central region? Are they crazy, or do they know something that we don't? Otherwise, why would they plow billions of dollars to buy these land parcels and then spend more money to develop this into units that they cannot sell later on? Hi, my name is Elgin, and in this video, we will touch on a few topics. Firstly, what are the problems with the CCR? And then we'll move on to case studies on some projects on why they lost money and whether their prices will continue to decline. Lastly, let's discuss whether it is safe to enter the CCR at this point in time, or is it still too risky to do so? Without further ado, let's look into the first issue, which is the absence of foreign buyers. Let's rewind the clock. Before cooling measures, developers back then had full pricing power. We saw eye-watering prices, $3,008 to even $5,000 plus per square foot, compared to the OCR, which was only $600 per square foot back in 2007. It was almost like a $5,000 PSF difference in price, and this also created an affordability gap whereby locals were unable to move to the CCR even if they wanted to. Take a look at the Mark, Scott Square and Orchard residences. They were sold for above $4,000 per square foot and up to $5,800 per square foot back in those days without the cooling measures. The proportion of foreign ownership in these condos are high too. The Mark at 43%, Scott Square 31%, and the Orchard residences at 28%. And currently, the Mark still holds the record for the highest PSF ever transacted in Singapore at $6,650 per square foot. That was recorded in 2011. So has the owner sold this property yet? Let's find out later. Let's take a look at some of the recent transactions for these projects as well. So first up is the Mark on Patterson Hill. This is a freehold ultra luxury project. So the owner in September 2018, he sold his unit for 3156 PSF. And if you look at the most recent one in April 2024, the unit actually sold for $4,253 per square foot. So as you can see, over the years, there has been some sort of a recovery in the prices. Okay, and of course, the record holder that we spoke about earlier, 6650 per square foot, that was purchased in November 2011. He sold the unit in September 2022 and made a staggering loss of $7.1 million. Of course, $7.1 million, I think back in 2022, you can probably buy a, semi-detached in the CCR, I believe. Okay, so next up will be Scott Square. This is a 9-year project, and right downstairs, they do have the shopping mall and the MRT at their doorstep. Okay, for Scott Square, they have smaller units, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom in sizes. So back then, when the owners purchased these units, they were selling for $3,200 right up to $4,300 per square foot. And today, the most recent transactions, right, the selling PSF is around $3,000 to $3,300 per square foot. And of course, these owners made quite hefty losses, especially for one bedder, right, at $700K. So, and they held it for almost 18 years and they still don't make money. So it doesn't mean that you keep on holding and then your prices will recover. It also depends on the current market demand. So it's best to reevaluate your portfolio from time to time. Okay, next up, the Orchard residences. So this is a very popular project with the foreigners because this sits on top of Ion Mall. So back in those days, the PSF went for $3,500 to $4,000 over dollars per square foot. But someone managed to get it at a good price in 2010 at just $3,000 per square foot. So most recent two transactions, they are at below 3,000 per square foot. So will this trend continue, to hover around 3,000 or below 3,000 per square foot? We don't know, right? So you see that most of the owners, they have also held on for some time, more than a decade and right up to almost 18 years. So again, the same thing. It doesn't mean if you hold on to the property for a while and you continue to hold on, prices may recover. It does not. It's not true. Okay. Again, it's best to reevaluate your portfolio from time to time. And so the largest loss-making transaction I've seen so far belongs to Mr. James Dyson. He bought his triplex penthouse at Warwick Residence for only a year, and then he sold it for, a whooping almost $12 million in losses. Okay, and the next buyer is also a foreign billionaire. So I think this makes up a very small portion of their net worth, definitely. So if they need to sell, if they want to sell, they'll just sell it without thinking twice. Okay. But if you know of any bigger losses than this, do let me know. Comment below. All right. So Warwick Residence, located in CCR Tanjong Pagar, TOP in 2017, 99-year leasehold project. And this was the tallest building back then. So right now, I think the tallest building will be Skywater Residences, also in Tanjong Pagar. That is developed by the Alibaba consortium of developers. Okay, so in Warwick Residence, if you look at the nationality of the owners, almost 53% of them are foreigners. So as you can see, there is a trend in CCR properties. So of course, foreigners, when they buy in Singapore, they definitely want to go for the prime areas like in the CBD, in Shenton Way, or in Orchard, or in other core central regions. Okay, so similarly, for an international investor, if they go to America, they want to buy New York or they want to buy LA. If you go to UK, you buy London or you buy Manchester, right? And if you go to Australia, you'll be looking at Sydney and Melbourne. So with the 60% ABSD, where are the foreign buyers? If they're not buying in Singapore, where have they gone to? Alright, so most of them, they have gone to Dubai, UAE, Hong Kong, and Malaysia. So particularly in Dubai, you see that home prices jumped 20% in 2024, and they are predicting that prices will rise another 8% this year. So whether you'll go into a housing bubble, we don't know. But of course, you will definitely be concerned if home prices jump by so much in this short period of time. And then of course, back to our local market, you see that the proportion of foreign purchases dropped to just 1.4% in 2024. So back then when we had double-digit percentages, they were in 2010 and 2011. So in 2010, it was 13.4%, and 2011, it was at 19.4%. And then it steadily declined after the cooling measures were implemented. You see down to just 1% in the first quarter of 2025. Moving on, the second problem is legacy product issue. In the past, there were not much regulations, and this resulted in many wasted spaces in a condo unit that do not enhance the livability. There were large aircon ledges, bay windows, planters, huge balconies which inflated the strata area, but effectively had a smaller internal usable space. Can you see how much space is wasted with these planters, bay windows, and large balconies? So looking at the first floor plan on the left, you see that the balcony and the planter combined, they constitute almost the entire living and the master bedroom of the unit. So I think if this is like a 600 square feet unit, about 250 square feet would belong to the balcony and planter. So if a local buyer were to come in and they take a look at this unit, they will definitely try to negotiate very hard on the price. Okay, so on the second layout, if you look at it, the planter and the balcony basically wraps around the unit, and the planter space is actually very narrow, so you can't really do anything much to this kind of outdoor spaces. So what can you do with it? I think it's really meant to be what the name suggests, which is to put in plants. Okay, and this is definitely a lot of wasted space. So back then, the foreigners who purchase these properties, they typically buy it for investment, and they purchase them off plan without looking at the physical unit. So they weren't too concerned about the layouts unless they were for their own stay, and they would typically buy into prime areas such as in the CBD, Shenton Way, or Orchard Road, because these would be areas where their families, their relatives and friends will all be very familiar with. And of course, these foreign buyers, they will not buy OCR properties such as Punggol, Sengkang, Yishun, Jurong, right? Because these are areas where their friends would not even have heard of. And of course, in the CCR, there are also many small plots of land, small-time developers, poor quality finishings, and little landscaping and facilities in the past. So these were all attributes that would dampen homestay demand, and as such, it gave negative connotations that CCR properties do not make money and only foreigners buy them. Today, the URA harmonization policy promotes practical and efficient layouts, so there will no longer be any guesswork on the amount of void spaces and the unusable spaces in the unit. The big boys such as CDL, Guaco Land, Hong Leong, Frasers, and UOL, these established developers, they recently completed projects such as Revere, the Avenir, Martin Modern, and Irwell Hill in the CCR and RCR. So their unit sizes and layouts are more practical and efficient, even though these were not the harmonized layouts. Okay. Now let's look at the recent TOP projects such as Avenir and Irwell Hill. The Avenir, freehold, 24% foreign ownership, and the highest transacted price there was $3,774 per square foot. Okay, and so far in the Avenir, it's all 100% profitable transactions for the resale side. And just look at the layouts and the floor plans. No complaints. Their 1 bedroom and 4 bedroom are all very squarish and regular in size, right? And sizes look very decent. They can all put in queen size beds in the common rooms, and it's definitely a big improvement over the legacy layouts. So next up, let's look at the Well Hill. This is also in the CCR, 99-year project, and the land size is more than 120,000 square feet, quite similar to the Avenir. Lowest PSF 2005, average 2008, and the highest is 3117 per square foot. Okay, so far for their resale transactions, it's 100% profitable. Lowest 72,000 right up to 268,000. Okay, moving on, the floor plans. We have 3 floor plans here: studio, 1 bedroom plus study, and the 4 bedroom. So on first glance, definitely you'll see that it's all very squarish and very efficient layouts. And all the bedroom sizes definitely can put in a queen size bed. So definitely an improvement over the legacy layouts, even though these are not the harmonized layouts. Okay, so if you want to enter CCR projects for capital preservation or legacy planning, the selection of the project is important. There were many smaller plots of land which led to smaller projects with few facilities and little landscaping. Just look at this. Out of 574 private developments in District 9, 10, and 11, only 22 of them are larger projects with at least 350 units. Without the full facilities, it makes it less appealing to attract own-stay demand. And moving on, the third problem is decentralization. So the government has been working on decentralization for a while now. It is part of their long-term strategy to promote balanced urban development, economic resilience, and social cohesion. This will reduce reliance on the CBD, optimize land use by creating demand and supply for housing in the heartlands, and improve transport efficiency. So as you can see, the government is focusing a lot on the transformation in the western, eastern, and northern gateways of Singapore, right? So you have the Jurong Lake District, which is the most prominent one, is still ongoing in the west side of Singapore, and in the eastern gateway, that will be the construction of Changi Airport Terminal 5, and in the northern gateway, Woodlands Regional Centre, And you also have the future RTS connecting us to Malaysia. And of course, the government will not neglect the downtown area. They are also transforming it into a live, work, play areas. So we'll take a look at the master plan later on as well. And of course, to achieve decentralization, the government must improve the transport network in Singapore. And so by the 2030s, 8 in 10 households will be within a 10-minute walk of a train station. And of course, once this transport network is up, residents will take a shorter time to commute to other areas for work, right? And then this will be when the government can bring in more jobs closer to the heartlands. Lastly, let's discuss whether the CCR can be revived. So from my point of view, I feel that the CCR can be revived in two ways. So one way is through with the recentralisation. Okay, so as you already know, the government is really working on the Woodlands Regional Centre, the Jurong Lake District, and Terminal 5. So while those are ongoing and probably nearing completion later on in the next few years, the government is also preparing, to diversify lifestyle and inject more life into our downtown. So you look at this draft master plan, you see that they are planning a lot of various activities in the Orchard area and especially along the Singapore River and right up to Marina. So the most recent launch, in the Marina Gardens area, that was one Marina Gardens. That was also pretty well received. They are almost like 50% sold out by now. On its own, in Marina Garden area, there will be, more community and lifestyle activities in that area. And of course, in the Marina Gardens area, the government needs to attract on-stay demand. So they want families to move in, they want more local residents to move in. So they need to improve the lifestyle offerings in that area, and which they will do so definitely. So look at this. I think it's quite similar to what the master plan for new townships are like. And the second way I think that the CCR can be revived is through consumer pricing recalibration. And what do I mean by that? Developers now have to pivot, right? Because their new target market are the affluent locals and permanent residents. But here's the problem, okay? Because these buyers will not rush in to buy at $3,800 per square foot. Let's take Cascaden Reserve as a case study. Before the 60% ABSD announcement, units were selling at prices as high as $3,800 per square foot. But once the foreign demand dried up because of the ABSD increase, the developer was forced to react and prices were slashed to under $3,000 per square foot. That's a drop of nearly $900 per square foot, a massive reset in expectations, right? I mean, you can call it a fire sale, you can call it a massive discount, but whatever it is, the developers had to recalibrate the prices to suit the local palate. Similarly, at Clee McCain Hill, before the 2 times increase in ABSD, their highest PSF transacted over there was $5,300 per square foot. So after that ABSD increase, they had to reduce the prices to target locals. Okay, so look at this two-bedder. This was sold at $3,197 per square foot the day the property cooling measures kicked in. And this was sold to a local buyer, a Singaporean, Mr. Xia, in his mid-20s. Wow, impressive. And of course, the last 14 units, they also reduced the pricing to $3,400 per square foot. And you can see from the chart here, right, is at the lower end of the spectrum for their transacted prices. But even when there is a 60% ABSD, there are still certain outliers, like this Skywaters Residences unit sold for $6,100 per square foot, marking a new record for 99-year projects. So we don't know who the buyer is. It could be a foreign buyer who is from a tax-exempt country with the free trade agreement, okay? Or it could be a PR. And then you look at the unit at Sculptura Ardmore, it also hit $6,000 PSF. And of course, this seller at Boulevard 88, he made $3.5 million profit just after 3 years. And the transacted PSF was how much? Almost $5,000. Wow, impressive. So with the recent price adjustments from Cascaden Reserve and the Clee McCain Hill, you will notice that the price gap between CCR and the other regions have narrowed over the years. So this just now stands at 17.5% between the CCR and RCR and 38.6% between the CCR and OCR, and this was in 2024. Okay, moving on to the next chart, let's take a look at the new sale prices. Okay, because we want an apple-to-apple comparison, we'll be taking 99-year leasehold projects from the CCR, OCR, and the RCR. Okay, firstly, let's look at 2010. All right, the gap between CCR and OCR was $1,100 per square foot in quantum, and percentage-wise, this was 55%. So over the years, in 2018, if you look at 2018, the price cap still kind of maintained, although quantum-wise, it sort of increased to $1,359 per square foot. Percentage-wise, it kind of dropped by 4 percentage points. Okay, and then currently in 2025, the gap between CCR and OCR is just slightly below $600, and percentage-wise, it's at 21%. So as you can see, we are at the narrowest in history. Okay, and if you look at the yellow and the red lines, yellow will be the CCR and red will be the RCR. You can see that these 2 points have met or almost met. And of course, with the upcoming new launches in River Valley and Zion Road area, I'm sure the pricing will be very competitive and be quite close to each other because they are only separated by the Singapore rivers. So let's also look at the price acceptance in the other areas of Singapore. Okay, in Jayden, OCR, Jurong East, the highest PSF achieved there was $2,832. And in Alta, Clementi, also OCR, this was at 2,881 per square foot. And at 8BT, this is City Fringe project in Bukit Timah Beauty World. It was $3,000 per square foot. The ORI in Toa Payoh, $3,064 per square foot. Chuan Park, OCR, 2,785 per square foot. And Emerald of Katong, City Fringe in Katong, obviously, $2,983 per square foot. And One Marina Gardens, just across the road from Gardens by the Bay, highest transacted PSF, 3,132 per square foot. Now, so what should prices be in the downtown area? In District 9 and District 10, what should prices be? Something interesting also happened in the OCR. Developers, they are bidding quite high prices for OCR land. So just look at this. Chuan Grove, 7 bidders, top offer of $1,376 just for the land. Okay, so analysts, they have estimate that average launch prices for Chuan Grove to fall within the $2,700 to $2,800 per square foot range. Similarly, I'm sure you heard of Bayshore. 8 bidders, okay, highest land bid was 1,388 per square foot per plot ratio. And again, the estimated sale price is from 2007 to more than 2008 PSF, with some people actually calling it actually hit 3,000 per square foot in future. And Lakeside Drive, this is at the Jurong Lake Gardens, okay, beside Lakeside MRT. And of course, Lakeside Drive GLS, this is next to Lakeside MRT station. Similarly, we also saw very strong bidding, with CDL winning the bid at 1,132 per square foot per plot ratio, and estimated sale price will start from $2,400 in future estimate. Yeah. Now, the reason why I show you those land prices in the OCR, okay, just look at this Zion Road and River Valley area. The land prices are almost similar to those in the OCR. Just look at this Zion Road Parcel A, 1,202 per square foot per plot ratio. Zion Road Parcel B, 1,304 per square foot per plot ratio. River Valley Green, 1,325. Okay, and River Valley Green Parcel B, 1,420 per square foot per plot ratio. And Robertson Opus, this is a redevelopment, so we do not have any land price. Okay, the 2 parcels at Zion Road, they will belong to the RCR. Okay, they are separated by the Singapore River and just 1 MRT station away from each other. So the two plots in River Valley, they will be considered the CCR. But of course, I think we cannot expect them to price in the 2728 range like what they expect of from the OCR land bids, simply because CCR buyers would demand a certain level of finishings in their units. Okay, it has to be more of the higher end. So I'm guessing the developers will be pricing these new launches at around, $3,001 to $3,200 per square foot range. So if you have anything below that, I think that is a bonus. So of course, the CCR may not be everyone's cup of tea. It really is meant for, people who wants to upgrade their lifestyle, who wants a different kind of lifestyle, right? But of course, if you are looking at an investment perspective, then these projects in the CCR might be worth considering. But do also take note what are the entry prices and the layouts and the product offerings. Now let's look at some of the new launches with similar land price. So the first one will be the One Marina Gardens OMG. Alright, land price was $1,402 per square foot per plot ratio. Okay, and units there are selling right now at $2,009 to $3,200 per square foot. And second one is the first GLS site in Toa Payoh in 8 years. Alright, so CDL put in a very optimistic bid of 1,360 per square foot per plot ratio, and they did manage to almost sell out. It did get a very good response, right? So this is also City Fringe, but in Toa Payoh. So you compare, do you want to stay in City Fringe Toa Payoh, or do you want to stay in City Fringe Zion Road? So let's also take a look at a couple of news reports back in 2017 and 2018. So the first one, Morgan Stanley, Singapore prices to double by 2030. And the second article, new private home prices to cost up to $2,900 per square foot on average by 2030. And this is by DBS back in 2018. So, and at first the OCR land bid for Bayshore was out. You would think that maybe this is a one-off because Bayshore is a new township and it will offer, waterfront views, waterfront living, and panoramic sea views, of course. You would think that this is one-off. But then with that Tron Grove bid, it just reaffirms that OCR land prices could jolly well hit 2009 easily in future. Now with these expected new home prices, which area will you choose in? OCR at 2004 to 3000 per square foot, RCR at 2007 to 3001 per square foot, or the CCR at 2009 to 3500 per square foot. We've come to the end of the video, so to summarize, we've seen the resale prices sort of stabilize in a tighter price range for the three projects in the case study, namely the Mark on Patterson, Scott Square, and the Orchard Residences. How their prices will move going forward will be influenced by how well the new launches do, whether the new launches and their new layouts are better than the resale projects. Because as long as the 60% ABSD remains, developers must recalibrate the prices for the local buyers who tend to be more price sensitive and are better informed on the latest market trends. And not forgetting Scott Square and the Orchard Residences, being leasehold projects, they are vulnerable to lease decay as well. With that said, the ultra-luxury freehold projects offer a unique proposition and they tend to hold their value well over the longer term. For the recently completed projects such as the Avenue and Irwell Hill Residences, we saw that these two projects offered attractive entry points that are similar to the resale projects. They also had a good land size with full condo facilities and improved floor plan layouts, which is why they are able to attract homestay demand from the local buyers. Lastly, with the latest land bids in the OCR, we sort of have a crystal ball into future home prices, and that is OCR launches like Chuan Grove and Bayshore are likely to start from 2,700 per square foot. And that really closes the price gap not only with the city fringe but with the core central region as well. And with recalibrated prices and efficient floor plan layouts, we are likely to see a renewed interest into the central region where the prime properties are. Finally, please support the channel by giving this video a like, comment and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for the latest updates. If you like more clarity on the market, you can contact me at my number here, and I will see you soon.